just in all the news today, these protests over a flood of illegals entering the country. I now want you to meet the dad who's taking the fight directly to the President of the United States. Welcome, everybody. I'm Neil Cavuto. He says his son, Drew, died when his motorcycle was struck by a car driven by a suspected illegal immigrant. Now that dad is sending this letter to the president. In it, he writes, among other things, my son and all of the others are considered collateral damage in the quest for votes and campaign contributions. Illegal immigration is not a victimless crime. So as the president prepares to sign an executive order, we're told, that could make millions of illegals legal and maybe do it after the midterm election, Don Rosenberg says the president should visit his son's grave and tell him this is the right thing to do. He joins us now. Mr. Rosenberg, thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I have the letter here, sir. It's a very long letter. It's a very eloquent letter, very involved letter. Have you heard anything back from the White House?
Not a word.
Have you heard anything back from anyone?
I've gotten response from various congressmen and people in the media, but no response from anybody in the administration.
You described yourself in one publication, sir, as a lifelong, very liberal Democrat. Now you've got this conundrum and this tragedy to deal with and reconcile that. Can you?
Well, I still consider myself a liberal. I just don't consider myself a Democrat anymore. But then again, I also don't consider myself a Republican or a Tea Party because they're all different issues. And this is just one issue. And as a matter of fact, I don't consider what the president's doing as a liberal position at all.
Yeah, I think that's why I was so intrigued about getting you on, Mr. Rosenberg, because you have no political axe to grind. You're neither, arguing a Republican or Democratic position. What you're arguing for is, what you argue is up to 3,000 people who've been killed by illegal immigrants. Now, there is some debate as to this Mr. Gallo who killed your son. I think hit him when your son was on his motorcycle. He had served 43 days in jail for those actions after the crash. But Homeland Security initially decided he could remain in the U.S. because his crime did not rise to the level of deportation. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. Well, first, I got involved in this strictly on road public safety, getting unlicensed drivers off the road. I never intended it for to be an immigration issue. My son was killed 2 weeks after the Democrats got slaughtered in the 2010 elections, so nobody was talking about immigration reform at that time. And we were originally told that Roberto Gallo was in the country legally, so I didn't even have an illegal issue to deal with at the time. Essentially, what has happened as I've been trying to fight this fight, and one place after another, whether it's the California legislature, the governor, and now on a federal level, being told that that driving without a license, which, by the way, kills over 7,000 people a year, is a minor offense, I found rather offensive. So when Gallo was let out of jail, I had met with Henry Waxman, who was my congressman at the time, because I wanted the guy to be detained and immediately deported. And the word we got back from USCIS was that he had only committed, and I quote, one crime of moral turpitude, which of course sounds much better than he's only killed one person.
Do you know where Gallo is now?
Well, he's supposed to be in Honduras. And he probably is. I have to tell you,
we can't confirm it. That's why I ask you, because no one seems to know for sure where he is. And that really addresses the bigger issue, I think, that concerns you. And that is whether we have a handle on this problem. Now, the Obama administration, sir, says, look, we've deported 2 million illegals during our stay at the White House. So we're on top of this problem more than any prior administration. What do you say to that?
Well, first of all, it's a lie, because they're defining deportations as people turn back at the border. If you look at the real numbers of people who, went through the deportation process, The president has deported less than the prior administrations, and the deportations have dropped from his first year, 2009, till now, where they're practically nothing. Matter of fact, I got an email from an ICE agent last week who told me that their hours were being cut back because they were told there's nothing for them to do.
Wow.
So,
well, here's where I'm confused. I'm sorry, Mr. Rosenberg. Here's where I'm confused.
Yeah.
The push in this country to give licenses to illegals, and that presumably they're going to drive, and this makes them accountable. This might head off this type of thing, the tragedy that happened to your son. It seemed like a screwed up argument to me, but you're much closer to this than I am. What do you think of that argument, that illegals who are here, they're not going away? Give them a license, make it noted, or some sort of indication that they might not be citizens, but they have to have that.
Well, originally, about 7 months after my son was killed, I testified in Sacramento against a law that they were trying to stop impounding cars of unlicensed drivers. And at the time, I was in favor of allowing anybody, who could qualify to get a driver's license, because I was under the same impression that everybody else is, that getting a license makes you a safer driver. The more research I did, the more I realized that that's not the case, and that most of the deaths caused by unlicensed drivers, about 80%, are running stop signs, running red lights, driving drunk, almost 50% of the time.
What happened in your son's case? I'm sorry, he was riding his motorcycle, and
he was coming home from law school. It was rush hour traffic. He was going straight, and even by every eyewitness testimony, even people on their side, he was going about 10 miles an hour. Gallo had stopped at the crosswalk, so he wasn't in the intersection. He had stopped at the crosswalk, and then at the last second he gunned it, trying to make a turn, and he hit Drew, but he only went about 20 feet, so he was going very slowly. My son was going very slowly, and he flew over the front of his car. Had he stopped, I wouldn't be here now. He would have had a couple of bruises, but instead he accelerated. He drove over his body.
Oh my God.
His helmet came off and got stuck under one of the tires. He backed up, drove over him a second time, and then, trying to flee, he went forward again, but a man had gotten out of his car and stood in front of Gallo's, and he stopped with his tire on my son's abdomen. He was charged with vehicular homicide, and at a preliminary hearing, which my wife and I illegally were not allowed to attend because they told us it wasn't happening, which is against California law, the judge decided that because the judge, in his words, I've been in a traffic accident too, and I know how much you can panic, and he reduced the charge to vehicular manslaughter, even though no one from the defense presented that argument at all.
I read in your letter to the president, sorry, I wish we had more time, but it was really a very well-written letter. You say to the president, it's now apparent that in the coming weeks you'll be protecting and offering benefits to at least another 5 million illegal aliens. You've been secretly meeting with stakeholders. You're going to explain those who support such a move, but you ask, who are you meeting with who opposes your plan? As you probably know, Mr. Rosenberg, indications are the president still might do this, but he will wait until after the midterm elections because he doesn't want to hurt Democrats' chances. What do you make of that?
Well, first, it obviously shows you what a political issue it is. It has nothing, this has nothing to do with the welfare of people that are here illegally. It's politics and money from both sides. And right, he's concerned that if I do this now, there'll be enough of an uproar that we'll lose the Senate, and so I don't know what to say, except that it's absurd that this is going on, and it's really absurd that it gets very little news coverage, particularly on the media that's more biased on the liberal side. They don't want to touch the story. They won't talk to me. They'll never respond to anything that I send them, no matter how much I source the information, showing them how wrong they are. So it's politics, and unfortunately, so many other things are as well. It's not for the welfare of the 99%, it's for the welfare of the few.
Mr. Rosenberg, as a fellow dad, I cannot imagine your pain, but I want our viewers to see your letter, and they will. It's on our site. Your story, your son's story, this whole story is outlined there in great detail. In the meantime, thank you very much.
If I could just add one thing, my site, unlicensed2kill.org, it's out there too, and you can see from the name of my site it had nothing to do with illegal immigration when I started.
That's right.
It was just
Nothing at all.
trying to make my son's death save somebody else's. That was it.
You serve your boy proud, sir. We'll have more after this.
Thank you very much.